Thank you. Vielen Dank. Vielen Dank für die starke Introduktion. No pressure on my side. Ich möchte gerne mit ihr ein Gespräch führen. Und das startet für mich mit zwei Fragen. Und das heißt, dass jeder im Zimmer hier beide Hände hoch hebt und nur die Hand nach unten macht, wenn du nicht instimmt mit meinem Statement. Okay, alle Hände hoch. Okay. Wer denkt, dass wir eine Verkehrswende brauchen? Wer nicht? Runter, wenn hoch? Okay. Alle, okay. Und wer will gerne eine bestimmte Rolle damit spielen? Wer will dabei sein? Alle? Gut? Okay, let's go. Let's go. So I will switch now because if you think we need a mobility transition, and you all think so, and if you want to play a role, you need to understand why John Lennon and Yoko Ono were in bed with a Dutch old white-painted, single-speed, back-pedal brake bicycle. John Lennon and Yoko Ono were in Amsterdam in 1969 for their honeymoon. And they were traveling the world, went to Montreal, to Paris, and to Amsterdam. And what they did is they also protested for world peace. And they didn't glue themselves to the street. They made a smarter move. They stayed in the hotel for 7 days in their famous sleep-in or bed-in. And what happened is that people from the city came to visit them and brought all kinds of gifts. And you can see an iconic picture from the Hilton Hotel in Amsterdam here, where they are in bed with a bicycle. So when one of the journalists asked John Lennon why he was in Amsterdam, his answer was, "Just because of the vibes, man." I completely don't believe him. I think he was there only because Yoko Ono wanted to be there. Because Yoko Ono was really interested in the counterculture, and in Amsterdam, the counterculture in the 60s was really strong, so she wanted to go there. But why are they in bed with a bicycle? Before I go and take you through the story of my presentation, one more thing to add here, because they were in bed with the bicycle in '69. 2 years later, they published a song, and you might recognize the song. Anybody? Na, 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 na. Na, na. Exactly, yeah. Imagine this. Imagine that the song Imagine was written in this bed. And it was written with a bicycle in bed. So we're going to explore this. What is the answer to this question? Because it's so crucial for you if you want to play a role in mobility transitions. And to do that, we're going to follow a few steps. I'm going to talk a bit about philosophy. It's necessary, sorry for that. We will go through it. I will teach you a magical trick, so that's fun. I will sing a song, if I dare to, halfway. I will tell you why you should not be Bobo, and I'm giving away free books, so what is not to like? Okay? So there's something for everybody here. But we start with the most important statement that I hope that you will take home from this next 40 minutes. And that's the statement that the language that you speak is not a mirror of reality. The language that you speak shapes reality. So the words that you use to talk about anything, the city, life, your marriage, mobility, cycling, is not an objective way to describe it, but the words that you use, since you are going to play a role in the mobility transition, defines what the city will look like in 50 years from now. Wow, that's powerful, right? But what is happening here? So we need to understand and unpack this concept of language. What does language do? Language has 3 important steps. And step 1 is that language is a necessary simplification of reality. We need it. We cannot escape it. Sorry. This will not be a lecture where we somehow escape this element of language. We need language to simplify reality. And it helps to understand this because you do this all the time. by explaining this mistake I always make. I always make this mistake. You might find it familiar. It's a bit painful. I have a WhatsApp group with my neighbors. That's already a mistake as well, but wait for it. In the WhatsApp group, I share pictures. And I just shared this picture. I send it in the WhatsApp group. People start talking about it, giving thumbs up, laughing. And only 5 minutes later, I get a personal app message from my neighbor. And she says, Marco, you did it again. You always do this. You send a picture, people start talking about the picture, but I'm blind, so I cannot see what is on the picture. So can you please send me a short line, a text, what is on the picture? So please, help my neighbor. And it can also be in German. Just a short sentence. What would you send my neighbor? What is on this picture? Yeah. A deer crossing the road. In the forest. There is a blue sky. Okay. There are no cars. There's an unfortunate street through the forest. So what is happening now, all of you, you are using language to simplify reality. So your brain is trying to describe something complex in a sentence. And that's the second element of language. Because the point here today is not that any of these choices are more valid than the other. The point is that you made a choice, and with that choice, you describe the same reality, very different from you. Both are valid, but both make us look at the picture in very different ways. So language is a necessary simplification of reality, which makes arbitrary choices, choices that you can always discuss and always fight about. So these two elements are very, very important. And to use it in your daily, if you have to explain this this evening at home or with friends, if you are as boring as me, you start talking about the presentations of that day. And one way to explain this is when you use metaphors. You use metaphors all the time. To do that, you use a metaphor to describe something complex, like life is a journey, or and now I'm giving away my age here, but love is a battlefield, or soccer is war, or time is money. You use that, right? Time is money. Yeah, you think it's true? It's completely untrue. Time is not money, but we use the metaphor to make sense, to simplify reality, so your boss can make a deal with you that you give time and you get money. But time is not money, but it's a useful metaphor. Simplify reality, arbitrary choices. So why is this so important? That's the third element of the philosophy section, is it is performative. So the choices that you make are not a mirror of reality, they shape reality. And to explain that, we stay a bit in the forest. This is a book by James Scott, Seeing Like a State, and he uses the forest to explain this logic of performativity. The language you start speaking shapes reality. If you govern something, you need a language, you need indicators, you need to make decisions, okay? If you don't govern something, you don't. And that's where he starts. He says, this is the primeval forest, das Urwald. And in the primeval forest, nobody governs this. It's a complex ecosystem that serves many different goals. So try to look at it from the perspective of a rabbit. You can hide here very easily. But you can also look at it from the perspective of a fox. You can hunt in the primeval forest. You can build a nest. You can play, you can grow. And therefore, the primeval forest houses a wide variety of different animals, different trees, different plants. It's a very complex ecosystem. But this changed. And it changed, according to Scott, at the end of the 18th century. And the change happened, not by coincidence, in Germany. At the end of the 18th century, humanity needed something from the wood, from the forest, wood. It needed wood. Wood was a building resource, but also a fuel, and we needed it. So people that owned forests wanted to govern their forest accordingly. So they needed a language, indicators, to help them understand how to govern a forest for optimized wood production. So they went and started a whole new academic domain that didn't exist, and it was started in Germany. It's called scientific forestry. And scientific forestry developed a new language to optimize your forest for wood production. And central word in this is the word Normalbaum. So the Normalbaum, the standard tree, became sort of an ideal typical tree to use to see and look at your own trees and think about how can I optimize this for wood production so I can put efficiently energy in it and get a lot of wood out of it, right? Okay, so that was developed end of the 18th century. New language, arbitrary choices, and that shaped the world. So these are now the forests. If you go through Germany, if you go hiking in the Harz or you go to Sauerland, you see production forests. The primeval forest is changed into a production forest. And what you see here is rows and rows and rows of Normalbäume. So I challenge you next time with City Lab to go to a production forest and play hide and seek. It's impossible. Because in this process, all the other goals of the forest disappeared. The bushes disappeared. All the trees are from the same age, from the same species, all to optimize wood production. Okay, this is a pub quiz question. You can also take this home for free. Which of these two forests do you think is more productive for wood? And if you have hiked in the Harz recently, you already know the answer. Because the simplification of the forest through the language of wood production has made the forest incredibly sensitive for, in this case, one little bug. Well, not one, but you know what I mean, right? So one species of bugs. And it's very, very sensitive for weather events. It's not resilient anymore. So keep this in mind, because now you're thinking, wait a minute, what has John Lennon to do with the forest? Nothing yet, but we have to make one more step. Because my argument here is that exactly the same process happened on our streets. Exactly the same, but more recently. This is an image from Mulberry Street in New York, Manhattan, 1920, only 100 years ago. Streets in cities were primeval streets, Urstraße. And a primeval street here houses many different goals. It wasn't governed. It was literally the remaining space between buildings. Can you imagine? There was no mayor for streets. There was no ministry for infrastructure. It didn't exist. And because of that, children can play here, people can trade here, people can meet each other here, people use it as a public living room, and they also are mobile through these spaces. And this all happens millennia long in cities in a very complex way. But I don't have to convince you, I think, that this is also not how our streets look today. So what happened? Well, this happened. Not the car itself happened, but the fact that the car could suddenly be produced for a lower price and larger amounts. So the car, literally this fast-moving, heavy vehicle, entered the street that we just saw in large numbers. And obviously what happened is that didn't fit. Literally, it collided. It collided especially with young children, because they were playing on the street and they were not ready for this. And in Fighting Traffic, a great book by Peter Norton, he describes how in 10 years, societal debate around this was formed. And at first, rooms like this, we all agreed that this was completely unjust, because we used the term justice to talk about our streets. And it was obviously completely unjust that children were the victims of this new mobility innovation. So the mobility innovation was not acceptable in any way. End of story. Applause, let's go. No. That didn't happen. In 10 years' time, which is both frightening but also empowering, in 10 years' time, the society came up with a completely new language. A new language that shifted from justice, and it shifted to efficiency, control, and the freedom of the individual car driver. That language has a name, and we now think that it always existed, but it was founded in 1930s. In 1930s, the language of traffic engineering was created. It was created. It was just a number of people in rooms like this that created it. And they created it in a time that we also started looking at cities in that way. Cities needed to be efficient machines, from primeval cities, the Urstadt, to production cities. Le Corbusier here in La Ville Radieuse, in the middle of Paris, proposed to make cities where you would all be happy because you were part of an efficient machine. And efficiency means you have a function at A or at B, and everything in between needs to be minimized. Optimize the machine, marginalize the human. One of his principles is literally called death of the street. The street should serve only to bring you and all your peers as efficiently as possible from A to B's. And this logic solidified. So we made choices in the 1920s and 30s, And it's solidified into design guidelines, into norms, into transportation models. It's solidified into institutions. It's solidified into behavior. It's solidified into concrete, steel. It's solidified into asphalt. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's solidified something even more important, our imagination. We no longer see that we live in a world that was just created with some choices in language. And I want to show you that. Because this is one of the most boring pictures I can show on a Dutch meeting, but one of the most exciting ones in many other places. Because this is the solution, right? This is what traffic engineering this would be the holy grail. We did it, the Dutch sustainable safe intersection. Please tell us how we can build it in Berlin. We will send our consultants, but I want to do something else. I want to go with you and see what solidified here. What language solidified? And I need to ask you some questions. You need to be honest with me here. Well, maybe the first question, and it's a riddle, and I hope that some of you can. So you don't have a language, right? But you have to start training traffic engineers. 1930s, the first education in Berlin needs to start training people traffic engineering. So you need a manual. You need to start writing down. Who do you ask to write the first manual? And please, give your ideas, because children are dying outside, so we need to figure this out quickly. Who are we going to ask to write the first syllabus for the school for traffic engineering? That doesn't exist, so we need to ask somebody. Who? Yeah, but they were this very small group at that time. So, parents, great idea. We didn't do that. Teachers, no. Police, no. Yeah. Industry, no. Professors, great idea, of course, but then no. Public, no. Shall I tell you? Because we can do this all day. It was water engineers, because water engineers in the 1920s had a very high standard. They solved big issues. They solved hygiene issues with sewage systems, and they solved water issues with pipelines. So they were asked, like, can you help us with your language to think about streets? Okay, this is a question I want to ask you. I want you to be honest. Who of you saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Not in real life, but in... So I did, yeah? Yeah, you can be... Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, human-sized turtles that live in the sewage system. Why can human-sized turtles live in a sewage system? What is the most important thing that a water engineer would design? What can never happen with the sewage system? You don't want to see it, but what should never happen with the pipelines? Yeah, exactly, overflowing. They should never be blocked. Right? They should never be clogged. So that's why you design a pipeline to cater for the big, intense floods of once in a 10-year storm. And the rest of the 10 years, human-sized turtles can live in them. And a rat, apparently. Human-sized rat. Weird. This is what you see here. We have been designing our streets as if they are pipelines that can never be clogged. This is the most important problem until today that we have internalized and solidified. On every radio station in Germany, every radio station in the Netherlands, every radio station in Western Europe, every half an hour, we hear that there are people waiting somewhere on the highway system. I wait all the time. I was actually waiting here. Not on the news, but if you wait on the highway system, it is going to be clogged. This should never happen. It should be on the news every half an hour. 1 minute. If you count this is per radio station, 360 minutes a week. 6 hours of radio time we spent on talking about the potential clogging of our highway system. Okay, so what happened? You have to write a syllabus, right? And of course you can't say people are water, so you have to figure out better metaphors. So they started borrowing from biology. And in biology, we started to understand the human body in the 1920s, 30s, elegant, beautiful, but also simple. So we started talking about those elements there. So you still talk about Berlin and the heart of the city, right? The heart of the city. So what flows to the heart of the city? Arterial roads, yes, arteries. So arteries, and if you go to a cardiologist, which I hope you never have to, but what would a cardiologist tell you? What should never happen with your arteries? They should never be blocked, exactly. So traffic congestion becomes the unquestioned problem on which you spend all your taxpayers' money until today to solve, right? We're still going to build out, what was it, the A13? We're still going to make more lanes because there's congestion and we need pipelines, and that's what you see here. Pipeline systems that should never be clogged, and very importantly, we started to realize when we had to build models that there were actually people here, and people are very annoying because they don't behave like water droplets. People make decisions, so we need to have a new language to model people's behavior. So we borrowed, very importantly, from economics. And the economy had a very nice way of simplifying you. You are all egoistic, selfish, cold, calculative, and isolated individuals that only optimize your own utility. Right? You are, right? That's what you put on LinkedIn, I hope. That's according to all the traffic models we use until today to solve congestion. This is the assumption of how people behave when they are underway. And remember, being underway is a negative thing. So in traffic thinking, being underway is a disutility, which means that, again, an unquestioned goal of traffic modeling and traffic planning, all the political parties from left to right in Germany agree on this, is to gain travel time savings. If people wait somewhere, they are losing travel time. And by solving that, we can have travel time savings. And that are the biggest gains to be reached in this process. And that's important here because it leads to pipeline systems where if the pipeline systems meet, you have a problem. You know, right? Because you are all egoists. So what can egoists not do when they meet each other? Give way. Yeah. No. This is actually, Thomas Schelling got a Nobel Prize by using the intersection as an example, how people cannot negotiate. They are always in conflict. So in traffic planning, all interactions on a street are conflicts. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the conflict-free pipeline system of the Netherlands, where everybody has their own pipeline now. Also, the cyclists have their own pipelines. The car drivers have their own pipelines. And sometimes they meet, and then they are egoists. So what do? So they can't sort of negotiate, but we have this thing here. A traffic light, yeah. In Dutch, it's a beautiful word. It's called a verkeersregelinstallatie. A traffic rule installation. Optimize the machine, marginalize the human, right? We've optimized the street for one single purpose, travel time savings. They should never be clogged. And in that process, just as in the production forest, everything else vanished. Children can no longer play here. People can no longer trade here. You can no longer meet each other here. No, this street only serves one purpose, shuttling people as fast as possible from A's to B's. So as we moved from the production forest, from the primeval forest through wood production to the production forest, I take you now to Mulberry Street, where we moved from the primeval street through the logic of travel time savings to the production street. And this street you can see everywhere around Berlin as well. We optimized it for one single purpose, and because of that, all other goals disappeared. That's sad, right? And it's not a mirror of reality, right? This is not only traffic planners in universities talking about this. This is shaping the world. Because this is a picture I got from somebody in an earlier audience that said, what? This is how it looks outside. This is exactly how we design our cities. Go on your bike or walk or whatever through Berlin after peak hour, and you will see that streets are completely empty. It serves only the congestion peak hour, and the rest of the day it is empty. Human-sized turtles could live there. Luckily they don't, but they could. Okay, now it's tragic, because now we ask our smartest minds in the room. Well, no, the richest man in the room, we ask him, okay, how would you solve this? And I always find this laughable, because basically, you remember the first traffic engineers being water engineers? So then the only solution can be a pipeline, right? So this is the new pipeline, the Hyperloop, that will shoot you with 1,000 kilometers per hour through a tube to Paris, so that you can drink coffee in Paris. And, well, you don't see anything on the way, because it's closed and very dangerous. And, well, anyway, you're sleeping anyway, because you'd have to take a pill, because you're nauseous on the way, so you can't really do something. Well, but never mind. But give me all your money. We built a system, and you almost have 0 travel time loss. Almost. But the Germans said, we see you and we raise you. Mercedes-Benz says, we solve it. Give us all your money, and what we give you is the self-driving vehicle. Ha! The self-driving vehicle solved it because you no longer have travel time. The algorithms are dealing with all the conflicts around, and you are underway as your egoist self, and you can do other things, like yeah, we haven't really thought that through yet, but give us all your money. We will make self-driving vehicles in every city, and that's what you want, right? You want 0 travel time. So now you have 0 travel time, and you figure out what to do with the time that you have for it. And then you think, aha! But now we are getting where John Lennon and Yoko Ono were in the story, right? Because they went to the Netherlands because Yoko Ono is the smartest in the room. I truly believe that. And she was like, we have to go there because these guys have bicycles. And bicycles will never do this, right? Because that's why Berlin also needs more bicycles. Bicycles will not fit in that logic. It will not fit in that logic, right? Right? Well, this is the future of the Dutch bike industry. This is what they now present. Thanks to all kinds of innovations, the bicycle can now also be part of the mobility fix, right? We have speed pedelecs and e-bikes and smart helmets. We have congestion cyclists. We have bike logistics. We have e-bikes on bike highways. We have bicycle superhighways. We have super bicycle superhighways, super hyper super bicycle highways. Now you can go on a bike ride with your spouse, and you don't have to talk to them because you can Skype or Zoom or Teams along the way. Wow. So if this would be why John Lennon and Yoko Ono were in bed with a bicycle, then this would be the lyrics of their song. Imagine bicycle highways moving fast from A to B. Speed pedelecs and e-bikes to move more efficiently. Smart bikes and smart helmets to optimize the machine. Ooh. And yet, thanks for the applause, but I do not think that they were in bed with a bicycle because of that. And that's why we need to dig a bit deeper, and we will. Because if we are using the bicycle in the same language that created the problem in the first place, we are not using the full potential of cycling to take us to a better world. No Verkehrswende. We will just reiterate the same problem over and over again. If we see cycling in the same language that created the problem, streets are still pipelines that need to function optimally to bring people from A to B. If we see cycling in the same language, we are still seeing being underway as something negative that you want to reduce to 0. If we see cycling in the same language, we are not helping societies thrive. We are still optimizing the machine and marginalizing the human. And I'm showing you this graph because it's so telling that just as in the production forest, this is also the pub quiz question, investing all your hard-earned taxpayer money in Germany on travel time savings has brought you 0 seconds of travel time savings. Literally. This is data from the Netherlands showing that we have spent 70 years, 8 billion a year on travel time savings. 0 seconds of travel time savings were won. But what happened between the 1950s and now is that people travel, instead of 6 kilometers per day on average, 42 kilometers per day on average. We are not gaining travel time, we are losing travel distance. And we become more and more dependent on the mobility system that should serve us. We became slaves of a mobility system that didn't bring us closer together. It propelled us further apart. And this system cannot sustain. It exploits the earth. It exploits our materials. It exploits us as humans. and it exploits us as individuals. So this is why we need to question the underlying narrative. Because if you don't do that, and this is an important statement, you are not part of the Verkehrswende. If you are not challenging the underlying rationality that created the traffic system in the first place, you are just optimizing the traffic system. You are not changing it. But I'm not here to say this to you. I'm here to tell you that you can. And I'm going to show you by teaching you a magical trick. Are you ready? Is everybody ready? Yeah? Because you will see something that you can never unsee. Okay? It's not scary. You can take it home. It's fun. But you will see something that you can never unsee. Are you happy already? Are you happy? Okay. So you all need to stand up. So please all stand up. And this is 3 steps. The second one is a bit difficult for men. But don't worry, I have your back. We will get you through it. I did this before. You can do it. Step 1, take a finger of your liking, and I advise a polite finger, but it's your finger, so do whatever you want, and point to the ceiling as high as you can above your face. And if I say as high as you can, and I now say higher, can you still do it? Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. So you're now pointing to the ceiling, and you're looking at your finger. And now what you're going to do, and this is hard for men somehow, I don't know why, but you're going to make clockwise circles along the ceiling. Clocks are clockwise everywhere the same, but somehow men have a difficult time of understanding that. Clockwise circles, you keep making clockwise circles, and the beauty is now everybody's looking at their finger, so you can just sort of sync your clock. You can look at your neighbor if you're in doubt and think, is this the same? Yeah? Okay. Because otherwise you're making a fool out of yourself later. So make sure that you're making clockwise circles along the ceiling, big ones, that's all fine. And now what you're going to do is you lower your finger, but you keep doing the clockwise circles along the ceiling, and you lower your finger in front of your face. So you make clockwise circles along the ceiling, but you lower your finger, and now you're in front of your face. Hello. There we are. Okay, now you go a bit lower still. So lower, lower, lower still, lower still. Now you look at your finger, and you tell your neighbor which direction it is turning. Look at your finger. Look. Just look at your finger. Look at it. What happened? What? Why is everybody laughing? What happened? What happened? What happened? Oh, yeah, what an audience. You can sit again. Yes, what happened? 2 things happened. You changed perspective. Nothing changed, but your perspective changed. And the second thing that happened, you now convinced yourself that you have the power to do this. You can do this. And remember the beginning and the philosophy section? That's what language is. Language is just a perspective. And if you have the power to change that perspective, you have the power to change the world. And I brought somebody with me to really explain this. Yeah, you can keep doing it, but it will still do the same. but please do. Don't worry. What? You can. I brought somebody, Lara Borditsky, and she can explain what is the power that you have, that you just showed, that you can use after this session by challenging the same thing with your language. So Lara Borditsky.
Now, the beauty of linguistic diversity is that it reveals to us just how ingenious and how flexible the human mind is. Human minds have invented not one cognitive universe, but 7,000. There's 7,000 languages spoken around the world. And we can create many more. Languages, of course, are living things that we can hone and change to suit our needs. I've told you about how speakers of different languages think differently, but of course, that's not about how people elsewhere think. It's about how you think. It's how the language that you speak shapes the way that you think, right? And that gives you the opportunity to ask, why do I think the way that I do? How could I think differently? And also, what thoughts do I wish to create?
So language is not about how people elsewhere think. Language is not something for the marketing department. Language is about how you want to think yourself, right? So if you're not challenging the way that you think about mobility, nothing will change. But if you manage to do that, you will see that you have different conversations with different people and find that there's a lot of people that actually find the same challenge and support you in doing that. And that brings us finally to the answer that you have been waiting for, because this is why John Lennon and Yoko Ono were in bed with a bicycle. The bicycle was brought to them, not by themselves. They arrived actually in a big Rolls Royce. I cannot emphasize enough that John Lennon was an Aston Martin fan. But the bicycle was brought to them by the counter movement. They were called the Provos. And the Provos painted the bicycle white, and the bicycle became as such a symbol of something. Not a symbol of congestion solving or health or cheap mobility. It became a symbol against what they called brutal capitalism. They said the bicycle allows us to rethink how we engage with each other, how we engage with the city, and how we engage with life. Right? So the bicycle can show us that being on the way is not a negative thing that you need to minimize. It is actually a powerful way where society forms. Right? The bicycle, they had a very beautiful Dutch saying for that, de fiets is iets en bijna niets. So if you want to learn a Dutch statement, learn that one. De fiets is iets en bijna niets. The bicycle is something and almost nothing at the same time. So it offers us this beautiful lens to rethink how we are dealing with the city and society as a whole. So let's do the trick, just as an example, what you can do when you walk outside today. You can do it, right? You can look differently at things and also start seeing different things. So I bring you now, as a final example, to Amsterdam. Nothing happens, by the way, nobody gets hurt in this video. I have to say that up front. But it's an example of a busy intersection in Amsterdam with a lot of cyclists. So if you go there and you ask it, nothing happens here, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. So if you go there with a traffic engineer and you look at it, the traffic engineer would say, wait a minute, this is a very busy intersection with all kinds of egoists going from A to B, and we need to minimize their conflicts because they can't do it themselves, and we have the solutions for it. A verkeersregelinstallatie, right? A traffic light, or maybe a roundabout, but we know how to solve this. But you can also say, wait a minute, no, I want to ask a sociologist. I want to ask a sociologist, what do you see here? And a sociologist did that and said to me, what I see here is the potential exposure to diversity. People are in bubbles, in rooms all the time, and the only place where they meet each other, people from different bubbles, is when they are underway. So what I see here is a lot of people from different walks of life that are actively meeting each other. The potential exposure to diversity is a very important element, because if you zoom in, you can see again the traffic engineer, egoists that are trying to push their way through on their bicycles, the bicycle Rambos, the radl Rambos, right? Or you can say, wait a minute, this exposure to diversity makes that people have to also use all their senses to send and receive information. So it's almost a choreography where they try to make it work for everybody, where you look at each other, use your eyes, use your body, your senses to send information that you're going to go forward, going to go left, going to go right. And this makes it work for everybody. There's always, of course, in this dance, one person that doesn't get it. If in Amsterdam, don't put your foot down. Never do this. Keep dancing, right? Because if you do that, you are doing something else, which sociologists call negotiation in motion. And this is why these crazy Dutch people are always upright on their bicycles, because then they can use all their senses to do this game, right? And that's also why the back pedal brake is so important, because even with the position of your feet, you already send information if you are open for negotiation or not. It is really important information. And why this is so important, because if you then go into the literature with a sociologist and say potential exposure to diversity and negotiation in motion have powerful effects on society. Namely, they have a positive effect on all these different dimensions that people feel is important to them. So they feel a more sense of belonging, a sense of influence, a sense of integration. They have the feeling that more of their needs are fulfilled. They have more emotional connection. They feel more neighbors to each other. They have more collective efficiency. They feel more part of a community. They have more a feeling of place and feeling of belonging. And maybe the most important one, they have more mutual trust. Because if you don't meet each other anymore in the self-driving vehicles, you do not develop mutual trust. But if you have to sort of negotiate with each other, which is not always fun, but at the end of the day, it sort of develops this understanding that we're all in it together. Boom! Can you imagine? Just imagine that the Ministry of Infrastructure is using these dimensions instead of travel time savings that do not exist. You can actually use the same money to improve the functioning of society. You can just do it. Okay, I promise you a last thing. Remember? Who remembers? Don't be Bobo. Don't be Bobo. And Bobo is the dog ear. So don't be Bobo. Bobo?
Come here, Bobo. Come. Good girl. Come. Good girl. Come on. Come on, Bobo.
That's hilarious.
Come on, Bobo.
Very funny.
Come on. Come here. Come on. Come on. Come here. Come. Come on.
So I learned from my sociology colleague that laughter in a room is a sense of shame, a bit. Because you know it, right? You know it. You are a bit Bobo. Because I told you that you can speak a different language, but are you? Are you really going to do that? Or are you waiting for somebody like me to open the door? There is no glass in the door. You can just do it. You cannot go out of this room and think that you cannot do it. You showed it. You can. Don't be Bobo. Don't wait for somebody to open the room, because the only thing that's holding you back, the only thing, is that you think that you have to stick to the old concepts of the way that we talk about things. But you don't have to after today. And if you do, it's your choice. Because the language that we speak is not a mirror of reality. The language that you speak makes that you see certain things, that you do not see other things, and it shapes reality in the process. So it's your choice not only to shape the language itself, it's your choice to shape your own thoughts. If you want to think about the Verkehrswende, the mobility transition, you can shape your own thoughts. That's a very powerful thing to realize. So you can decide, I want to keep seeing mobility as a disutility and I want to go fast from A to B. That's fine. But you can also choose to see mobility as a meaningful way of spending a part of your day, meeting other people. And that is also fine. You can decide to see the street as a pipeline that needs to flow all the time, or you can see the street as a place where society can thrive. You can decide to see humans as egoists and create systems that sort of fulfill their egoistic needs, or you can decide to think about ways to make society come together and make people aware of that. That is our choice. No, it's not. It's actually your choice. And I wish you all the best with that choice. The one. The book can already be pre-ordered on Amazon, and I really hope that it helps you to make that choice and maybe start having a conversation with other people as well. So that's it for me.